Well, there you go, friends. This was a, how do you call it, a user error on my part. A muted microphone. So I'll start it from the top. Hey, Inspire Time, my fellow freedom lovers. It's John Nolan here. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is Thursday, March 13th, 2025. Out of the Matrix into Prime Reality. Let's do this proper. I also want to ask you, please, to like and share this stream. We are in negotiations with the algorithm, and it's currently not going in our favor. Everything is steered by algorithms here, so it is what it is. Christine and I discussed this yesterday. Once again, we're going to show up in the way that we show up and not structure things for instant virality, because we would have to compromise our values. Okay, for today, let me start with the buried lead. If you only have 5 minutes, this should be good enough. People constantly write us and tell us and realize just how obnoxiously overwhelming sometimes the attacks on us in our consciousness are, from the frequency level to the poisonous, level, to water, air, programming. It's all really, it's a pretty strong machine that's working every day. And when people reach out to us, they kind of do it in with a sense of despair, and they go, what could we possibly do against all that is going on? And almost like we're so little, there's nothing we can do. And so here's the buried lead. If you were so little, if you were so powerless, if you were so small, they wouldn't have to do it, friends. These forces wouldn't have to do it. So everything that is thrown at us informs us about our true power. Now, does that mean we should tolerate it, accept it, and allow it to continue to happen? No. But I'm saying first and foremost is it informs us about how powerful we must be if they do it. Because if we weren't, they wouldn't have to. Okay, so that's the buried lead. Now, how do we get here? How do we get to this point in time? And how come that knowledge and wisdom have become such a rarity in our world, and even the thirst for it? So we have to reverse engineer the journey, and this is a natural progression of the shows of this week. This falls perfectly in sync with the other shows that we did. And this is about a concept that I call the invention of forbidden knowledge. So where did we start? And if we don't have a proper understanding of where we started, at least as far as we can tell, then we don't know how we got here. And there is a deception that's going on still to this day to keep most people from seeking and embodying knowledge and wisdom on a true level. So that's what we want to dive into. And I think for those of you who've never gone on this journey here, you might be quite surprised just how sophisticated this whole operation was that's been going on for thousands and thousands of years. So here we go, my friends. The grand deception, and we're going to get to the solutions as always. The dark forces, often described as the priesthood or hidden rulers, used a deliberate and multi-step process to make people forget their natural wisdom and then enslave them using occult and esoteric teachings, not to enlighten them, but to confuse and control them. And I'm going to go into this in a little bit here. So the number one thing, and if you think of our original state of being, and original state of being also, I think we need to think about prime Earth or prime reality before the matrix reality was superimposed on it. We lived in a different state of being. So the first thing that had to happen was a disconnection from nature and divine thought. But I must stop here, because most people don't know the proper exact meaning of nature. Nature, we usually think of as trees and grass and birds and the sky and oceans and all the natural things. We often exclude ourselves in that thought process, but let's for a moment include ourselves. But there is another thing that is forgotten about the nature. And I specifically say the nature because I'm talking about the nature of things. We were disconnected from the knowledge of the nature of things. So we talked about this yesterday. What is the nature of something? It's the truth about it in its core. Why is it there? What does it do? What are its correct characteristics? So when we're divorced from the knowledge of the nature of things, we are a confused species in a world that we don't understand. That was the first thing that had to happen. In our original state, I would say, I can't say that I know this for sure, but there's a memory there. In our original state, we were perfectly connected. We had what we could call divine thought. Not every now and then, not only when we meditated, but that was our natural state of being. We actually didn't have to go into altered states because that was our state. So that had to happen. In ancient times, humans had direct access to divine knowledge through their connection with nature, pure thought, and ancestral wisdom. Think about a state where confusion isn't really part of our journey. Think about a state of being where we are as sure of our nature as an animal is sure of its nature. If you can observe an animal in its natural environment, and if it's sort of undisturbed by our observation, that's usually the best way to do it, there is usually no confusion. Animals are not confused. They're not confused about what to eat, about what to do. They're very clear. So they're living according to their own true nature. I think at one time that's what we did. Dark forces, and we can argue all day long about where they came from. What happened to them before they did that? There's a lot of theories and a lot of knowledge that can be gained about that. But for today, let's just focus on this here. Dark forces disrupted the connection by introducing fear, artificial knowledge, and hierarchical priesthoods. And here's how I imagine this most likely happened. Imagine a scenario where people live harmoniously with each other in nature. They even communicate with creation. There's probably very little conflict, if any at all. And now imagine a visitor, a foreigner, someone who would naturally be welcomed at first because maybe hostility is not even a thing. And so once that foreign visitor gains some trust, starts talking about secret, hidden knowledge, things that man doesn't know yet. I can see how this unfolded subtly but slowly. Sow seeds of doubt. Give something that people have never heard of. Sort of slowly but surely pull them out of their innocence of being because they don't live in deception, so they don't think about deception. They separated people from nature, making them dependent on experts for wisdom rather than their own intuition. And let's not make a mistake here. This didn't happen in a generation. This happened over many generations. Many generations were slowly but surely something that was whole, something that was harmonious, something that was working. And I must quickly sort of explain this. I couldn't be talking about this if it wasn't a memory. You couldn't be imagining such a state if it wasn't possible. So people say that it is impossible for man or mankind to live in a harmonious way with each other, with nature, with all of creation. So if it is impossible, why can we imagine it? If it is impossible, why can some of us remember it? I want to throw this out there. Cities and artificial environments slowly replaced natural settings, reducing people's spiritual sensitivity. The introduction of fear-based religions created the idea that people must go through an external authority, priests, books, rituals, to access divine wisdom. This is where you have to see this from a proper angle. The forces that came to subdue human consciousness were lacking in that connection, were lacking in spiritual knowledge greatly. But what they had was sort of the smart trickster energy, the energy of deception. And when a people doesn't live with deceptive thoughts or ideas, it isn't so hard. Naivete is actually today, naivete is the number one reason why people believe things that they shouldn't. Because good-hearted as many are, they only want to see the good in others. And this is exactly what happened here. So over time, they were able to pull people away from inner knowledge, inner wisdom, to external knowledge and external wisdom. And once people began relying on that because they forgot the inner thing, it was very easy to control them because we have a natural thirst. You know, we have a natural thirst to know things, understand things. We have a natural thirst to seek for something higher. The creation of false mysticism and elitist knowledge. This one is such a big one. It plays a big role today. Once people forgot their natural connection to wisdom, the dark forces invented secret teachings that were only accessible to the worthy few. They hoarded and distorted ancient wisdom, wrapping it in complex symbols, rituals, and cryptic texts so that ordinary people could not access it directly. Instead of true divine knowledge, they promoted fear-based occultism where power was only granted to those who proved themselves through obedience, secrecy, and submission to hierarchies. So this is what happened. Today, on a large scale, you have a population that once it's born into a system that is that does not acknowledge the spirit of things. Most religions do not really interact with spirit. They interact with just the mental aspect of things. So then the spiritual side, occult wisdom, esoteric knowledge, it's bundled and it's only presented to those who first pledge allegiance to an organization, a secret society, a group, who are then initiated and slowly brought into the knowledge, you know, to the extent that they needed to fulfill their purpose. And whether you're talking about Masonry or whether you're talking about, you know, other Jesuits and you know, Illuminati, and I mean, there's a lot of secret societies, many of which are at odds with each other, but the principle is the same. When the individual comes into the order, comes into the secret society, comes into the group, they are thirsting for connection. They're thirsting for knowledge. They're thirsting often for power. And so these individuals are then initiated, and they're giving knowledge of rituals and invocations and practices and prayers that are powerful, but it is a false knowledge. It is a false power. It's a power that's externally created, and they're given these magic, you know, and these occult formulas and spells, and it creates this separation between that individual and the rest of society. That individual now feels extremely empowered, like they have, you know, knowledge that only a few possess. And so they're special, they're chosen, they feel chosen. And this is how they then go into the world and use that knowledge to further an agenda that never benefits the people. Never. Even if they pretend it does. Secret societies and priesthoods controlled access to knowledge, keeping the masses ignorant. False rituals and esoteric systems replaced true inner knowing, leading people in circles rather than toward enlightenment. And again, what is enlightenment? Simply remembering who you truly are. That's what this is. The use of fear and superstition to suppress curiosity. The dark forces programmed fear into society, making people terrified of questioning authority or seeking forbidden knowledge. Um, you know how this was with the church, and other any mainstream religion had a very tight grip on the population. It monopolized the knowledge that they were allowed to have, not just spiritual knowledge, but knowledge in general. It monopolized what kind of science they had access to, what kind of worldviews they had access to, and it tightly controlled the distribution of books. Often many books are forbidden. At quite, at sometimes it was forbidden for a regular person to read the Bible on their own. They could only do it with a priest. Why? Because the priest had to interpret it properly so the person knew their standings. You see, this was all a tightly controlled, and I believe we can think of this entire period of thousands of years of the creation, the imposition of the matrix, of the simulation of a false reality upon prime reality. They promoted punishment myths, hell, demons, curses, to stop people from exploring their inner power. But this doesn't mean that demonic, dark expressions do not exist. It simply means that they were taken completely out of context and that their power was amplified by what? By making many people believe in them. And so the more energy that was given to those entities, the more they rose in power. We are the co-creative force. We have the co-creative consciousness. And that's what, when you know how this works, that's what is used to create thought forms, elemental images, and bring forth manifested reality. Now, you could look at all of this as some woo-woo talk, as some spiritual, esoteric, new agey talk, which it is not, or you could think of it, maybe in today's terms, as different computer programs, computational programs interacting with each other to bring something about. Nobody would say that for those who are writing code for a website, nobody would say that they're practicing magic. They say this is logic. This is logically how it works. Somebody writes the code, and then the code appears as images and text and colors and shapes on your screen. Nobody thinks of it as magic. But when we talk about the concepts that I'm suggesting here, people think of it as magic and woo-woo and superstitious, when really they are just functions. When you truly comprehend the nature of things, then these things can be used in that way, for good or for bad. But it's not woo-woo. There is no woo-woo. And in order to even keep people from looking at it, they created concepts of woo-woo. They created concepts of dismissing it, ridiculing it. Of course. Listen, it's all one huge trick. And once you look behind the curtain, you see that there's nothing powerful behind it because it's a trick. It's like saying you used to go to the movies. Remember, it was very visible in the back. They had this projector and they project literally a holographic image. I mean, they project an image on the screen and you sit there, but by minute 15, you're so in the movie. It pulls you in so strongly, emotionally, that you believe it to be real while you're there, while there is a projector in the back. Not very powerful, by the way. It's just projecting an image. And this is literally how this reality operates. They infiltrated every aspect of life, religion, government, education, to ensure that people associated divine wisdom with danger. To this day, by the way, and I can mostly observe this in Christianity because that's what I see all around me, is how many Christians are afraid of even speaking about certain things because it is demonic or dark or dangerous. When speaking about them and actually exploring them would dissolve their fear and see a bigger picture. And I don't mean this in a demeaning way. I simply mean it's a mechanism of control to keep you from exploring something. And what you're mostly kept from exploring is true divine inner wisdom. It's all externalized. God outside of you, Jesus outside of you. Religious indoctrination ensured that questioning spiritual teachings led to excommunication, persecution, and execution. Nothing more common in Christian history than crucifixions, burning at the stake, the persecution of witches, and anyone who uttered words that weren't in sync with the thought of the day. Occultism was portrayed as both powerful and dangerous, keeping people either afraid of it or obsessed with its power for the wrong reasons. There's so much to say about this. Replacing true creation power with external systems of control. This is where we are. You can't observe this in our reality so clearly. The final step was ensuring that humanity no longer believed they had the power to create reality through thought, love, and divine intention. Instead, people were given false systems, religions that promoted submission, sin, and guilt. Now, let me ask you this. How empowered do you feel when you are in a state of shame or guilt? When you're in a state of submission, feeling small? How empowered do you feel? How capable do you feel of co-creating reality, of co-creating something beautiful when you're constantly told that you're a sinner, you're small, you're shameful, you're guilty? What does that do for you and your own inner creative power? But what does that do for them? It creates systems of guilt and shame and fear. It creates thought patterns of shame and sin and fear and guilt. And it manifests a reality that reflects that shame and guilt and fear. Governments that replaced self-governance with dependence. I think dependence on an external structure is as sinful as it can get. It is denying our own abilities and replacing those abilities with dependence. Now that is a violation against our own human consciousness, I believe. Economic systems that made people slaves to money instead of creators and acceptors of abundance. Monetary systems ensured people worked for survival rather than for creative fulfillment. The education system taught obedience instead of wisdom, and people became disconnected from the true power of thought, relying on technology, books, or gurus instead of their own consciousness. By making people forget their natural knowledge and then replacing it with fear-based occultism and religious dogma, the dark forces gained control over human consciousness itself, which is the goal. If you want to challenge creation, or the creator, if you will, if you want to challenge the creator, the intelligent consciousness that from which all originates, you have to subdue its creation or do your best to try to do it. This is an epic, ancient, original battle. And it is about our consciousness. This is why this subject is so present, so important, why we talk about it so much, because it is the last stand. And when we upload it, when we hive-minded in a computational system, when we give it away before remembering what it truly is, chances are we will stay in a subdued and enslaved state for a long time to come. So, what is the truth? What is real? The way To reverse this control is simple because the truth is always simple, but so powerful. Reconnect with nature. Wisdom is encoded in trees, the wind, the stars, and the land. And yes, we are talking about, on the surface level, we're talking about the construct, a copy, a simulation. Yes, but the real thing is hidden underneath it. It's not gone. Prime is not gone. Prime reality, prime earth, prime nature is not gone. And we can connect to it. And also reconnect with the nature of things, the nature of you. What are you really? Who are you really? Not the role that you play, not the way that people see you, the box that they put you in. Not, hey, Peter's a programmer and he loves the Chicago Bulls and he's a Methodist and he's all these things. No, the true nature of you, beyond labels and boxes, reconnecting with that. Detach from fear. Fear is the greatest weapon of control. Love is the antidote. Fear is the greatest weapon of control. Imagine if people woke up tomorrow morning and realized that all their worries and doubts were unnecessary, that all they ever wanted and needed was already there. The access to love is already there. Think creatively. Remember that thoughts create reality. The greatest power is within. But it's not just like, and this is where we have to go into nuance. Not every thought that you think about manifests in reality. A thought isn't really a thought when it's just an old image that replays. A real thought is an act of creation. It is birthed from consciousness, and then it goes into your mind, and you are forming it, and then you're enhancing it with feelings, with vision power, with intention, and then that thought becomes a thought form, and that form, when it's powerful enough, can become a visual, audible, touchable, tasteable reality. This is an act of creation. It's not something that happens randomly, right? And just because you look at something or observe it doesn't mean you're amplifying anything or creating that because you're observing it. That's just not true. It's a good trick, but it's not true. Ignore false hierarchies. There is no chosen few. Everyone is capable of divine wisdom. Everyone who, is a spirit, I would say. I do not think that a creation of the program is capable of divine wisdom. Mimicking it, yes, but not really being it. Whether that's an AI or an NPC, which is another form of AI, we're not talking about those. We're talking about true consciousness. Live in harmony with creation. The more one aligns with natural law, the more the illusions fade. These things are not complicated. But in this world, they try to be hidden or misconstrued. The truth is that we never lost the knowledge. It was just buried. The dark forces never actually erased wisdom. They just buried it under fear, lies, and distractions. The moment someone looks within and reconnects with true knowledge, the entire illusion begins to collapse. A great read to comprehend what really happened to our consciousness and how it can be awakened fully is the Ringing Cedars books, The Ringing Cedars of Russia. It's a book series. You might have heard about it, by Vladimir Megre. It's hard to get. It was, sold millions and millions of copies and has been, specifically the English translation, has been, it was selling like hotcake, and was suppressed. They quit it. They quit printing it. They created sort of a I think an atmosphere of hostility between the publishers here and the author. I don't know exactly, but there's still copies available out there. There's still editions that are floating around. Look on eBay, look on used books websites. They might be on the expensive side. It's 10 books that I recommend everyone reads, really, you know. And you can learn more about how all of this unfolded, but more importantly, you can learn more about how to truly awaken consciousness to its true levels, right? That's the key point here. um, and go on this journey for yourself. We can only point to it. So that's The Ringing Cedars of Russia by Vladimir Megre. I recommend this. Excuse me. I recommend this to everyone. Um, you know, very soon, you can see it in entertainment. You can see it in the movies. You can see it in the concerts. You can see it in the music. As a matter of fact, you can see it when you compare how young musicians, actors, when they first enter the scene, how they are. They're still normal looking, natural looking. They have a glow, a joy for the art, a joy for creating it. And then if they're chosen to become a part of the mainstream, they get a record label deal with a big label, or they get a deal with the big studios and big agents. Now, within a few years, you can see the transformation into a an amplifier for the occult, a transmitter of hidden symbolics and frequencies. So you can see how this has been amplified over the last 20, 25 years to a level where now almost all of mainstream entertainment art is on a dark side. It's on the occult side. It's on the low frequency side. And so it is to be expected that very soon there will be a large scale acceptance of this belief system in the mainstream. Still today, maybe occultism, Satanism, the worship of dark forces is still a little fringe, but it is moving into the mainstream. And the only thing that can act as a counter to that is more people connecting to their true inner wisdom, because no one would ever even entertain the idea of submitting to these dark energies, um, if they are in connection with their true divine wisdom. And that's why we keep saying that the answers are not outside of us. They've always been inside of us. And this is not just symbolically speaking. If you invest enough time, enough energy, and discipline to just sitting in stillness, which the discipline is needed today because we're so distracted, right? Our attention spans have become short. Another result of the influence of these dark forces. But for those who overcome and it can actually sit in stillness, if you sit long enough, you reconnect truly on a deep level. And most, if not all, confusion goes away. It dissolves. Your question marks sort of turn into connection. And you're not looking at life as this riddle to be figured out, but you are becoming the solution every single day more and more to all the challenges and problems. That's the only antidote I know. The first thing that they really would love for us to do is to fall into anger, is to fall into a perpetual state of hate, and even a perpetual state of fantasizing about violence against them. They don't mind that. People think that these dark forces don't want the violence, don't want to be fought. They don't care about that. That's their domain, you know, sort of from this low level of revenge, acting from that. That's their domain. They're perfectly equipped there. They're perfectly unequipped in the domains of true love, true divinity, true wisdom. So, you're holding all of the power. They're holding none. All they have is creating illusions and deceptions to keep you tricked into believing something that's not true. That's all they have. I think it's incredibly empowering to imagine that, and we have dedicated our lives to living like that. Yes, we fall short, you know, every single day, but we dedicate our lives to it. And we encourage everyone to go there too. Once you've experienced this true connection, there's no going back. All right, my friends, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being here with us again today. We enjoy this very much. We enjoy the expansion of thought. We love having you all over on Locals, inspired.locals.com. There'll be no show today. We're recording an interview, but people. Pardon me? I will ask a question. Yeah, people connect there. People share posts there. Our shows and our lives there. The Coffee and Truth shows, the Honey Talks shows are, I think, a little more intimate, a little more personal. And we just enjoy the expansion of consciousness over there very much. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. Again, that's inspired.locals.com. And, we also wanted to ask you whether you'd be interested. I had this idea of creating maybe a 1-hour video, if you will, that airs on YouTube. And maybe it's just a compilation of great memes, that we've gathered over the years, and we would just air this at a time as maybe a premiere or a live stream, and then people could meet up in the chat, and you could just chat with each other while the memes are flowing or whatever. If you're interested in something like that, because I know a lot of people really love the connection in the live chat, and I get it. So if that's something you'd be interested in, we could create that for you. We wouldn't be there live, but you guys would be. So if you're interested, let us know in the comments, and we'll think about how we can create that. All right, my friends, thank you so much. We love you. We appreciate you, and we'll be back with you again very, very soon. Are you looking for like-minded and like-hearted people to connect with? Then the Inspired community on Locals is the right place for you. You can post, comment, share, and connect with others, and our shows there are completely uncensored and unfiltered. It's stuff we can't talk about here. It's such a great community, and there are 0 trolls. We keep the subscription fees super low, so 19 cents per day. Keep the trolls away. Join us today at inspired.locals.com. We can't wait to see you there.